There are still a lot of myths and misconceptions about the transgender experience, including the act of physically transitioning from one gender to another. So, what steps can you take and how difficult is the process? Hi, I'm Rappler Lifestyle Editor Margie De Leon, and we're here with YouTube Nextup 2021 winner Van Vincent Go. So, Vincent uses his YouTube channel to share his transition journey as a trans man to raise awareness and advocate for his fellow transgenders. So, welcome, Vincent. Thank you for being with us today.
Hello. Thank you for
Hi.
having me today.
Oh, we're so glad that you're here with us. So let's just get right to it, Vincent. So for one, let's start at the very beginning. When did you realize that you were transgender?
Well, I've always seen myself as a boy as early as 4 years old,
Okay.
but I just did not have the language to express it. So it was only when I was about 18 years old when I realized that I was transgender all this time.
So how did that come? How did that happen when you were 18? Like, what triggered that realization?
Well, what happened was I came from an all girls school, so
Mm-hmm.
I had a group of friends. My group of friends were a lot of them were butch lesbians. So
Mm-hmm.
at that time, I thought I was the same as them. But then, as we grew older, I was getting I was getting really uncomfortable with my body. But then I was asking myself why when the rest of them didn't have any issues with it. Like they were okay with having all those changes that we experienced during puberty.
Right.
So then that's when I started going on the internet because that's the only place I could go to. I didn't have anyone else to ask, and yeah, that's when I came across. I went to through Tumblr, YouTube, Google, all that stuff. So I came across a YouTube video of a transgender man. I mean, a girlfriend of a transgender man. And then in the video, they talked about all these changes that happened to him. And then I was like, "What's a transgender man?" So that's when I started googling more and more about it, researching more about it, and then I came across SOGI. So SOGI stands for sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. So that's when I finally found all these definitions about different gender identities, and yeah, that's how I found out that I was trans all this time. I just didn't have the right word or label to call it.
Right. It's so interesting because you said that you first found out about the term transgender on YouTube, and now fast forward to now, and you're like the YouTube Next Up winner.
Yeah,
So
I
that
know, right?
parang full circle na. Ayun. Actually, it's a good thing you mentioned yung Soji because we also have a Soji explainer, a two-part video explainer. What do you call this? Detailing the different aspects of that term. Okay, so that happened when you were around 18. So did you like officially come out? So how did your friends and family react when they found out what you realized about yourself?
At that time, I didn't because I actually come because whenever people ask me how I came out,
Mm,
it's really funny to me because they ask me what if I how I came out to my family. I come from a very big family, so it's funny to me because I never really came out to them all at once. Because just to give you a picture, I have 8 siblings. So if I came out to all of them, I don't know. I can't even picture it. So anyway, the first person I actually ever came out to was my girlfriend because she was the only one I could really talk to about these things. I told her about my plans and all that, and she was really understanding and supportive about it. So the very first family member that I said to myself would um, tell about my identity was my mom. So I first came out to her first, and then she didn't really take it well, but the good thing was, at the time when I came out to her, I was already ready with whatever um, reaction she would give me. My whole point about coming out to her was to tell her my plans and that this is me, this is who I am, this is who I've always been, regardless of what she's going to. say. Um, my point was just to really let her know. So yeah, and then after that, I came out to a couple of my sisters, and then I'm not really close to some of my siblings, so the rest of them found out later on when they noticed the changes while I when I started my medical transition.
I see. Okay, so from the get-go, you really wanted to do the physical transition
Um,
already.
yeah, just to clarify, because there are several ways to transition. There's physical transition, there's
Mhm.
medical, there's social, there's even legal transition when you can change your gender marker and your name. So um, so let's just be clear that what we're going to be talking about here is medical transition.
Okay.
So what your question was how I decided to medically
Yeah.
transition, or
Yeah.
oh, okay. So yeah, that was the one of my main goals really, because I was getting really uncomfortable with my body, and medically transitioning was what I saw was going to help me with the changes in my body that I'd be comfortable with. But before even deciding to start it, I had to make sure that we found the right doctors to monitor us and all that. So that's how we came up with a support group. Actually, I co-founded the very first trans man support group here in Visayas and Mindanao. And yeah, it started, when was that? 2015, I think, or 2014. Yeah. Anyway, so we started the support group, and our goal was to make a directory of medical professionals who were trans friendly, because we live in a very also, yeah, years ago we live in a very conservative country, so a lot of doctors do not actually support this kind of uh, process. So we had to find the right doctors who would properly monitor us as we go about our medical transition.
Okay, so besides the doctor, the doctor's clearly a very important choice. So apart from that, what other things should you take into consideration before deciding to medically transition?
Well, with regards to medical transition, of course, your finances, because it's not just something you can you know pay for a day or whatever. So you'd also have to have emergency funds if ever you'd have adverse effects, because we're dealing with medication. And then your mental preparedness, of course, you'd have to know, you have to make sure that you know the effects, the side effects, the adverse effects, and that you are going to be completely okay with it and everything that comes with it. And one more thing also is, other people think that once they transition, they'd immediately get, or for those battling acceptance from their environment. Some people have this belief that once you transition, you'd automatically be accepted by everyone else in your um, environment. So that's not really true. It really depends who you're going to be with, because even if you transition, it's not a guarantee that people are going to look at you differently, because you're still the same person, and the people around you who do not really believe in these things are still the same person. So yeah, that's also something that you need to take into consideration.
Yeah, I kind of compare it to when you go through therapy or mental health treatment. It's something that it's kind of long term. It's basically for the rest of your life. So you have to
Yes.
be mentally prepared to be in it for the long haul. It's not just like just like a few years and then everything's gonna be okay. It's not
Yes.
it's not
That's
just like a
right.
surge. Yeah. So
Mm.
all right. So what are the biggest challenges you've encountered so far when transitioning?
Well, basically having to deal with people who would frown upon the idea of transitioning. I guess that's the biggest challenge.
Okay, so by the way, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. So, what exactly does medical transitioning entail?
So medical transitioning can or come in different ways. You can go into hormones, or there's also surgery. So those are basically anything related to medical things.
Okay, so which avenue did you decide to take?
I went into I already took well, thank you for that question, but regarding surgery, I'm really personal about it.
Oh, okay.
Except for the top surgery that I shared on my YouTube channel. So I've had top surgery and hormones. So those are the things that I'm willing to share about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay to ask, like, during the hormones thing, is it like a pill you have to take every day, or how is the process like when it comes to that?
Yeah. What I am taking is through intramuscular injections
I see.
because the pills that we currently are have really high liver toxicity, so it's not really recommended.
Yeah, so I would imagine that you also had to go through like a lot of physical tests first, in
Yes.
order for your doctor to know that your body was like ready for this to begin with.
Yeah, to have
Yeah, you have to be
clearance to
healthy.
start transitioning. That's
Yeah,
right.
so there, yeah, a lot of things to consider. So what when you started transitioning, what change in your body excited you the most?
Well, I was really excited with almost everything. You know, the deepening of my
Mhm.
voice, finally the body fat redistribution, wherein my body would look more masculine, and yeah, basically the most exciting thing that for me that I can say is that I can finally look in the mirror and see and say that I'm looking at myself. You know, who I've always been deep inside.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so uh, why did you decide to document your transition on YouTube to begin with? Like, it's like you said, it's a very personal process. So what made you think that this was something that you were willing to put out in the open in public?
Well, as I mentioned, I watched a YouTube video, right, of a trans guy, and after that, I went through a series of videos. Like I literally watched hundreds of videos on YouTube about trans guys, but the thing was they were mostly in Western countries, and I could not find a Filipino trans guy who documented their transition. So that's when I thought, what if more trans guys here in the Philippines would look for that? And at the same time, I also really wanted to document my transition because I wanted to have something to look back on. Um, and I'm glad I did because during days when I'm really down or and all that stuff, I look at how far I've how far I've come, and they remind me how much of a struggle it was before. So it also makes me feel better now. Yeah, I'm glad I did
Yeah,
document my transition.
yeah, and I really appreciate how you were able to document it so thoroughly, because when I checked your YouTube channel, it was really like there were tons of videos. Like, you could really see the gradual progression into who you really are, right? So it was really nice to witness as someone who is not familiar with this kind of process, right? So
Yeah.
you were part of batch 2021 of the YouTube Nextup program. So how did this program help in your advocacy? Could you tell us more about your experience with the Next Up program?
So my next up experience has been really unforgettable. I'm even wearing the jacket that they gave
I
me.
see.
I'm glad. You know, it's my first time having a jacket that has my YouTube channel name
Oh,
at the
awesome.
back.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was really happy about it. But aside from that, it has really helped broaden the reach of my advocacy since Next Up always represents a diverse set of creators. So, which means that we got to learn about each other's backgrounds, and I was able to educate some of them who have not at all encountered a single trans guy in their lives. You know, it's funny, just a little side story. I even had a co finalist who did not know what a trans man was up
Mhm.
until the very last day of our um, camp. So yeah, and then I explained to my co-finalist and all that stuff, and then my co-finalist got really shocked and all that. So yeah, it was funny because the whole 3 week journey we've been talking and stuff, and the person didn't know. So yeah, I also learned so much about creating content, so it definitely will help me in my making of my videos. more informative and inspiring, and also finding the right rhythm, and even reaching more people to tell my story. Because look at this, I'm even on Rappler now, and it's still unbelievable. Rappler's really big for me, yeah. And then above all that, being part of Next Up gave me a support system through the community, and I have built my fellow Next Up creators. Yeah, I built it with my fellow Next Up creators.
That's awesome. So I assume there will be more next up programs in the future for future content creators.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, awesome. So watch out for that. So yeah, like you said earlier, some of the people you were with hardly has never met a trans man to begin with. So when you started that transgender support group years ago, so tell me more about the people you met in that group, and like what kind of community have you built with that support group?
Uh, so it just started as a, like, well, yeah, it was a support group. Like, we met monthly, every first Saturday of the month. We would either have coffee or milk tea, or yeah, just hang out. Or sometimes we do have talks. We do have Soji talks or Trans 101 talks. So just so we have a more uniform um, education of the whole information. So
Mhm.
yeah, it started as that, but we were really few during the first few years. It was only maybe 2 to 3 years ago, wherein we started actually just in Cebu, and then we started getting applicants from different provinces in Visayas, and then we
Mhm.
got applicants from Mindanao, and it was hard to say no to people who are looking for support and don't have anyone to go to, because yeah, I was one of those people who was like that before. I didn't know who to go to. I probably only knew one trans guy in my life who I could ask. So yeah, we started as that, and then now we have been, it has become an advocacy group at the same time, but not all of our members are into advocacy, because a lot of them several of them prefer to be stealth. Stealth is
Right.
when you don't like to disclose your trans identity. Also, it's
Mhm.
for their safety, and we don't really also force them into advocacy because it's really voluntary. So that's how it went over the years.
Okay, awesome. Have you ever met anyone who actually realized they were transgender when they were meeting you, or have you ever witnessed someone in that process of realizing who they were?
Um, Most of the people who come to me are already questioning or
Mm,
already have these questions about whether they are trans or not, or how to start medically transitioning, or how to
mm,
safely start medically transitioning. So I've not actually met a person who did not identify as trans before and then realized that, oh no, sorry, I just remembered, I did a Soji talk for a youth group before, and then a lot of them had questions because it was their first time to hear about Soji. So yeah, a lot of them did have questions, but they did not say immediately that they identify as trans. They were probably just in the questioning stage.
right. Like something sparked in them, like, oh, this is
Yes.
possible, or this might be something that I actually relate to.
Yes.
And that's why
Correct.
it's so important to advocate, because a lot of people don't really know, and it's just really a matter of being able to articulate it to other people. So we're actually down to our last two questions, Vincent. So first up, what's next for you? What are your plans in the coming months or years?
Well, right now, in the coming months, I am working on making a series of educational videos about our community with updated information, because I did all these in the past, and you know how our experts find new information every now and
Of
then
course.
our politically correct terms keep evolving. So it's nice to be aware about all these things, knowing that how diverse our community is, and at the same time, I am showing more about other aspects of my life now on my YouTube channel.
Okay, Vincent, we're actually down to our last question. So, what advice would you give someone who is considering transitioning?
My advice to give to someone who's considering transitioning would be that it is never a race. Take as much time as you need, educate yourself as much as you can, and always make sure you have medical supervision before you decide to start your medical transition. That's the most
Okay.
important thing. Yeah,
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, it's it. I can imagine that it's something that you urgently want to do, but it actually is. It takes a lot more time and a lot more preparation and thought, before you can actually get into that. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so that's a wrap, guys, for our latest episode of Rappler Talk Lifestyle. Thank you so much, Vincent, for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me as well.
Okay, so you can catch Vincent on his YouTube channel, Vandom Vincent. Once again, I'm Rappler Lifestyle Editor Margie De Leon. Thanks for watching.